You know what, guys? It's episodes like this that piss me off because as great as this show is, I really don't understand why we have to wait till January for another episode. Hey guys, can remember the season finale of the original, Season 3, Episode 22, The Bloody Crown, and obviously, guys, I was hyped for this episode, even more so than last year's finale. Last year's finale I thought was a great finale, but this episode in general, I mean, we have been teased since the beginning of the season that we're going to get this prophecy and that everyone's going to fall, and this was that episode. Finally, we get to see, is that prophecy going to come true? Is there a way to fix it? And especially the fact that we're not getting an episode till January, which really pisses me off. I was definitely looking forward to seeing how things would be, because I think there'd be a really big cliffhanger. Of course, we know what we saw in the Vampire Diaries, that Klaus somehow has to leave, and we saw how that's going to turn out. Overall, guys, I thought this was just a very satisfying finale. I don't know if it was the best episode of the season. It was definitely one of the best, without a doubt. But I'm not going to lie, guys. There were some scenes in this episode that were really hard to watch, and there were some scenes where I was on the verge of tears. This was a tough episode, definitely, because we didn't know if this was going to be the last of some, the end of some characters because of the fact of this prophecy happening. We didn't know what was going to happen, if we were going to lose some characters, if everyone was going to, I mean, we knew obviously everyone wasn't going to die, but it really seemed like we were going to lose someone big, but especially because they killed off Cammy and they killed off Davina, would they really lose someone big? We'll get into that, but let's just get into this episode. There is so much to talk about, so much happened in this episode, and I think, without a doubt, the best finale the original has ever done, definitely. I absolutely love this finale. So right away, we start with Marcel, literally right where we left off last week. You see Marcel's in the water, and he thinks about Klaus telling him as a kid that he's a survivor and naming him Marcellus and telling him he's family now, and he thinks about Elijah teaching him piano and to read, and I really think, again, they really justified why Marcel is going after the family, because to him, this means absolutely nothing. Think of everything they did for him. They called him one of their own, and now Elijah has killed him, and Marcel's out of the water. He's all healed up, and he's mad, and I think it was good that Michael Narducky said in the beginning of this episode that Marcel is not meant to be written as a villain, and I really don't see Marcel as a villain. I've never really seen Marcel as a villain, for this arc. I've seen him more as just someone that really is just not feeling like they're a part of this anymore. He's always felt like he's always done things for them, but they've never done anything for him in return, and that's why he feels so out of place, and I definitely really like seeing that, especially very well done in that scene. And Charlie Michael Davis just killed it in this episode. Like I said, he kills it every episode, but here he was incredible. So then we see at the Mikaelsons, we get a much well-deserved scene that I know everyone's been looking forward to. Elijah is naked in bed with Hayley, so these two definitely did have sex, and she's still sleeping. He strokes her back, and I think this is just really satisfying. It's about time that we finally get Elijah, especially because of the way this episode ends and things like that. I think it was just a matter of time, really. I mean, we knew that Hayley has always loved Elijah, that she basically wanted to pretend that she loved I think she did kind of have feelings for Jackson, but she admitted that she didn't really love Jackson in the way he loved her. She really loved Elijah. That's who she wanted to be with, and now these two finally get to be together. And again, the way that Hayley is sort of like the one that calms down Elijah, I think we definitely saw here, and I really enjoyed seeing that. But basically, he strokes her back. She wakes up and turns to him. She asks if he was watching her sleep, and he says a little bit. He kisses her hand. She says, despite all they've done and those they've lost, they're still here. He's not alone, and they know this is not going to be, this is not going to be how it is forever. Like, they're kind of just enjoying these moments, savoring those moments, and Hayley kisses him. He holds her close, and it's a really nice scene, but you know that the thing that's so scary about this episode is that you don't know if Elijah's actually going to die. Like, I legitimately thought they might kill off Elijah in this episode. One, because Elijah killed Marcel, and we know Marcel's back. Two, the fact that, they'll all fall. I knew they wouldn't kill Klaus, but Elijah I wasn't so sure about. So Klaus is with Hope, talking to her about life if someone else had been her father, and he says everyone who loves him regrets it. And by far, I think we get the most focus on Hope we have gotten in a while. I mean, it's not that we haven't focused on Hope, it's just last season was so Hope-centric. This season hasn't been as Hope-centric. She's still been a part of it, but this season really implies that Hope is going to be doing a lot more next season. And He calls her his little wolf. He promises to do right by her. Elijah comes to him and says he won't ask his forgiveness. He says he had no choice but to kill Marcel. And Elijah cannot be more down himself than ever. Klaus says he knows the burden is heavy protecting their family. And Elijah says this time it was too much for Klaus to bear. He walks away, and it's really sad because Elijah is kind of blaming some of this on himself. He knows that obviously Klaus has reasons to be, upset as well. But he really is pinning most of this blame on himself, which is really sad to see. But he walks away. Colden talks to Freya. She says she couldn't sleep because of her dread or intuition, and Freya in this episode, seeing her work effortlessly, basically on the verge of dying, I mean, it's really hard stuff to watch, but it really does show how much of a badass and how much of a fighter Freya really is. I mean, you see throughout this episode, she is exhausted. I mean, she looks like she is about to just faint throughout this entire episode. You can tell that she's not well, but she's willing to do whatever she can to make sure this prophecy does not happen, because she, even though she has this, intuition that this prophecy is going to happen, she is going to make sure that, she's going to try to make sure it doesn't. So basically, she has a map that, to trace Klaus's enemies, and because she knows one by friend, one by foe, one by family, and she's thinking who the foe could be, she chants in the blood, all concentrates on New Orleans. They are all here to coming, they are all coming there, and Klaus and Cole says, look like a horde of killers is out to get him, and it's really crazy to see. I mean, they already know that this is the day, and Marcel is then at Davina's crypt. Vincent is there. He tells Marcel Davina helped shut down the ancestors, and Marcel says it's time to do his part. Marcel says he tested them by letting them think he didn't take the serum, and they tried to kill him because he did take the serum, but they didn't know that he didn't take it, and Vincent is worried about the innocence of the city caught in the crossfire, because not everyone in the city is bad. There are humans in the city, and again, Vincent's really just thinking about everyone else, and Marcel says that he's going to protect them, and I can understand if someone thinks that Vincent is annoying, but I really see him as just the one that's looking out for everyone, the one that's making sure that everything goes right, because he doesn't want New Orleans to be destroyed because of this. And basically, Elijah says the compound's protected. Cole says that they should let the enemies amass at the gates, and Freya then works the spell and says no, and you know that obviously this isn't working for her. A vampire is there, cuts her throat. We don't know who these vampires are, but they definitely seem like the definite threats for next season is what it seems like, at least. The brothers then come to check on her when they hear a sound. Vampires literally fill the compound. Marcel says that he never thought it would come to this, and he says he would be dead in the river by now. Elijah says that he's the one to blame. Marcel says that Klaus' sirelinks are there to bear witness, and that scene was crazy. When you're just seeing them sitting there, we see Cole, Elijah, and Klaus. They're this horde of vampires, and Marcel says he never thought it would come to this, says he would be dead in the river by now. Elijah says that he's the one to blame, and Marcel says that Klaus's sirelinks are there to bear witness, and Cole asks if Marcel has a show planned, and Marcel says it's the fall of the Mikaelsons, and the show has started, and I thought that was the perfect way to start the episode. Really kicked the episode into high gear. I absolutely love the way that was done, and really just set up how crazy and really just eventful this episode was. That's really what this episode felt like. It felt like a big event, and that's what this episode should feel like. It's a huge event, because it is kind of like the fall of the Mikaelsons, and you definitely did get that sense here that, you don't know if everyone's gonna die, but you definitely can tell that after this episode, things between the Mikaelsons will likely never be the same again. So Vincent then confronts an angry mob at the front gate. Obviously, as we know, he's trying to make sure that total war does not completely break out, because he wants to make sure that the people that aren't vampires and witches and things like that don't just, start fighting. And he gets them to turn around, except for Kinney, who I love seeing Kinney in this episode, because again, it shows that Kinney probably is going to play a greater role next season. We see he tells him he found something strange at a crime scene, and he feels that it might be the work of a vampire or a werewolf. It is not the work of a human. And you can tell that Kinney, he's still trying to deal with the fact that this stuff is there. He still doesn't necessarily believe it, and it makes sense, definitely. I mean, think of what Kinney's been through, all season long. He's been on this case and everything and things like that. Well, not all season long. He kind of faded away after a while, but Kinney really now is the only human that, is really relevant in the show, and I do like seeing that. We do have to have that one human character, and I feel like Kinney is definitely going to play a big role next season, a much bigger role than he has this season. Not that he did at the beginning of the season, but the second half he really did fade away, obviously because Klaus did compel him to forget him, but there's also the fact that now he knows the vampires, werewolves, witches, he knows they're all alive, and really has changed him forever, you can definitely tell. So Hayley then rescues Freya from the vampire, but she's been poisoned, and it's a crazy scene. The way that was done, the way that Hayley just stabbed that vampire. It just shows how much of a badass Hayley is, and also how much she will go to protect her family. And even though Hayley's not a Mikaelson, she really is an honorary Mikaelson, kind of like how Marcel felt like a Mikaelson. I think Hayley's more of a Mikaelson than Marcel will ever be, because Hayley will do whatever she can to protect them. She'll always be there for them. Unfortunately, though, Freya is poisoned, and it's really sad to see. And we see the crime scene is a bloodbath of Strix, we find out, or what's left of them. And one fell from the ceiling, takes a bite right out of Kinney, and we don't know if Kinney's dead, what happened there, but I'm assuming that Kinney's going to turn into something next season. We don't go back to this, you know, for the finale, but I do think that Kinney is probably going to turn into something next season. It just kind of makes it seem that way, because Kinney was bit. I feel like he's got to turn into something. You know, if he was bit, definitely I think there's a possibility he could turn into something. So Hayley then feeds Freya her blood in order to help her keep moving, and Freya's just trying to stay positive. You can really tell. They're both trying to stay as positive as possible. Again, Freya knows that inevitably that the end is near, but she's really trying to stay positive. She's trying to hope that everything's going to be okay, and Freya's saying that, you know, this is it. You know, I love that Freya keeps saying that this is it. There's no way out of this, but Hayley's trying to feed her blood so she'll live and everything, and I love the way that that was done. So a fight then breaks out of the trail. We see Klaus is helpless to watch as Marcel is beating his brothers, and I love that Klaus really can't really do anything here, because it's not even Klaus he's fighting, it's Cole, and he literally takes a bite out of Cole, and Cole is now bleeding from his neck. You're thinking, holy shit, is Cole gonna die? And I know everyone was thinking that Cole was gonna die again, because they killed off Cole last season. They're thinking they're gonna kill off Cole again. Now, I didn't think they'd do that, because why would they kill off Cole after killing him 2 times? They would not do that again. Cole has been a much bigger part of the season than he was last season. Well, he was last season, but more was him and Davina. Now he's really back with the family. Now Davina's not there, and the fact they've kept him on for this long, I definitely knew that I didn't think that they were going to kill off Cole. So, but right as they're about to attack, Rebekah literally jumps right between them, and we knew she was coming because Freya said that she knows of someone that can bring Marcel down. Of course, we know the future and the history, well, I mean the history that Rebekah and Marcel have, and it was, of course, awesome to see Rebekah here, who I'm thinking is going to be actually maybe bigger next season. This season implies that Rebekah might have more to do next season, which I know she's on that show Aquarius right now, which I heard isn't that great. I heard a lot of people say it's probably getting canceled this season. If it does, that means we could definitely have more Rebekah next season, because that really is the only reason why Claire Holtz can't do the show. I mean, I know she left for personal reasons, but she comes in ever so much, you know, during these finales that you'd have to think that maybe they're going to do more with her, and it really does seem like next season they definitely are doing more with her. So she jumps between them. She tells Klaus to take the brothers and run, and when they do, she demands quick answers from Marcel, because she needs to speak to him, obviously. You know, she knows what he's doing, and she doesn't even need to ask him what he's doing. She knows exactly what he's doing, and she wants to know exactly why this is happening. So seeing Hayley and Freya, they're tearing up Klaus's room in search of a cure, because they are basically out of options. They're frantically trying to search, and they're unlucky in their search when Klaus enters with Elijah and Cole. And again, it's really devastating, because already the Mikaelsons are losing. There really is no winning at all. They're completely losing, and things are looking really grim, since they're looking from 3 different curses. And I like that Klaus tried to stay optimistic and tell Cole you're going to be okay, but like Cole said, that's what he said to Cammy and to Finn. You know, when they both died, he said, oh, you're going to be okay. They weren't okay. So Cole really is thinking that he's going to die here. And again, it's really sad to see, but, you know, we're thinking that someone is going to end up dying. And it's just really sad, honestly, that we've had to come to this. But we knew this prophecy was going to happen. We knew that this was going to come to haunt them. And Rebekah learns that sad news, that there is no cure from the poison in Elijah and Cole's veins, and they might actually end up dying, and that they might just, they're not going to make it possibly. And apparently Rebekah was also bitten. You know, she doesn't have much time left either, and Marcel agrees to give them justice, and because we know that he bit both of them, and Marcel agrees to give them both justice, and he's not going to fight either of them because of what Rebekah said. And I love that Rebekah got right to it, that, you know, she said, look, I'm not going to do the niceties, you need to stop what you're doing. And, you know, she asks why he's doing this, and it just really reminds us how much of a badass Rebekah really is, the way that she basically just goes right to questioning him, and not even questioning, interrogating, straight up interrogating Marcel, because she's not going to let him do this to her brothers. You know, even though, you know, I think she does have those feelings for Marcel, she's not going to let him do this. And definitely, I really like what we saw here. But again, Marcel's hatred isn't wrong. Like, we can understand why he has this hatred against Cole, especially against Klaus. You know, we know why he has that hatred there. So Cole and Elijah start to make their final wishes known, and Elijah takes responsibility for the moments that led to this. He also makes Klaus promise to keep being strong, and I legitimately thought that they were going to kill off Elijah. I really thought that, and this scene was so hard to watch. I mean, Elijah blaming himself for the death and everything, and promising Klaus to stay strong and everything, telling him that this get to him. I mean, it really, I was on the verge of tears, guys. I'm not gonna lie, because you don't know if Elijah's gonna get at this, even though you're hoping he is, because of the fact of this prophecy. You don't really know if he's gonna get at this. And Rebekah then learns that basically, we then see that Rebekah informs Klaus of his two choices, because he only has two choices left, really. One, he can give his life to the jury, or allow the mob to rip him and everyone apart. And she really doesn't want to do either of them, and I love how Klaus knows that he has to do this. He has to give his life. He has to do this on his own, because he's not going to let any other member of his family get hurt. I mean, already, Marcel has hurt Elijah, he's hurt Cole, and he's not letting him hurt anyone else. He's going to do this to himself. Even though Klaus doesn't really want to do this, he knows he has to, and I love that Klaus knows that he's kind of on a suicide mission, and there really is no way out of this, but he has to, and especially when Rebekah agreed to tag along, and Klaus just said no, it really just shows how protective he is of Rebekah, and that love he has for her, because most people say that Klaus is most protective of Rebekah, and yeah, it really does show here that out of all the characters, Rebekah is the one they think Klaus does care about most, definitely. I mean, just the way he looks after her, because she is his little sister, and he definitely looks after her that way, and I've always really liked that bonding between these two, and this episode reiterates that for us. So Marcel is then taunting him with ghosts of his past in the form of all the vampires he sired, and they're all pretty much against Klaus and Rebekah, and Rebekah seems to barely be holding it back, and it's really crazy to see just the way this was done. Meanwhile, Cole just keeps randomly uttering Davina's name, thinking that he's going to end up meeting up with Davina, and he's getting worse. He keeps saying, Davina, I know you're here, and it's really sad to see, because one, we know that Cole genuinely did love Davina. Two, he keeps thinking that he's going to be with Davina, and Rebekah manages to step in, turn it, and basically things are not looking good for them at all. Things are looking really grim, actually, and they're pretty much just trying to enjoy their last moments, because again, they think that they're gonna die. They don't think there's a way out of this, and I love the way this next scene was done, because you see things are about to get really crazy. Marcel is completely taunting Klaus at this point. I mean, he's telling him all the things that he's done, how he's wronged him, and how he saw him as a brother, and how he let Elijah kill him. He didn't try to stop him and everything. But I do like what Klaus says, that Davina wasn't that much better, really. That Davina's death, really, Rebekah really does get to say she finally steps in, turns it all around to the people there, and I love what she says, that you're no better than Klaus. Because, yeah, every single person that is against Klaus just wants absolute power like he does. And I don't think Klaus just wants absolute power. I think Klaus wants to be in power because he wants his family to be intact, and I do think that's something that they showed really well here. I definitely really enjoyed that. And the things she says, she's really not wrong about. The fact that Marcel, Davina turned against him anyway, and Davina turned against everyone, and really was just a threat to their family, and, really he should be glad that she died. Because, yeah, Davina never listened to Marcel. Even though she saw Marcel as a father figure, she was always that rebellious type teenager that never listened to him. And she always had, it was always what she wanted over what Marcel wanted. And that's a big reason as to why I think Marcel really shouldn't be avenging her. Now, I totally understand, obviously, why Marcel has this, love for Davina, because he always saw her as like a daughter. That was the person that he did everything for. He was so close with her and everything, and he just really wanted to help her. I totally do understand that. But what Rebekah's saying is not wrong, that really Davina did nothing for him in the end. Davina did not give him what he wanted, and in many ways, Davina was as bad as Klaus. The only difference is that Klaus is alive. And honestly, I think that's the only reason why he's really going after Klaus. I mean, there are other reasons, but one of the only reasons is because Klaus is dead and Davina, Klaus is alive and Davina's not. And I feel like that's the big reason. Klaus and Davina are very similar in that they both wrong Marcel, but in different ways. Klaus has done many things, and it's all just piled up, while Davina, she died and he didn't get a chance to do that. I feel like if it was the other way around, would Marcel avenge Klaus? I'm not really sure, but with the way this episode ends, I definitely think that Marcel would avenge Klaus. We'll get into that though, but Marcel the Mockster starts to bring up all the negatives while the Mark slowly starts to take over, and she falls into insanity and seems to completely flip her alliance, and Claire Holt just did this scene perfectly, because you can tell this is not Rebekah at all. The mark on her is making her go insane. It's making her lose her sanity and say all these terrible things about Klaus. She starts to tell the crowd some dark truths about Klaus. Now, let me just say, I don't think Rebekah's wrong. I think Rebekah truly does feel this way, but the positives outweigh the negatives for her. That's just how Klaus has always been. That she knows he's done some bad things, but as she said to Marcel, that they had some bad tiffs here and there. And I know Marcel, of course, said everything that they went through. I mean, Marcel literally got right in her face and said, think about all the terrible things he did, how he daggers everyone because he's incapable of loving anyone but himself, and tells about the suffering that she has gone through under his hand, and pretty much just everything that he's done to her. The fact that he made her leave, the fact that he daggered her, the fact that he tore away from Marcel. And again, I think these are things that Rebekah's genuinely mad at him about, but she has understood why he's done this. And because she's under the verge of insanity right now, she really can't contain herself. And after story, it seems that Klaus has lost any chance to persuade the crowd whatsoever. And it's really sad to see, honestly, the fact that Klaus, you really see, has no say in this, really. I mean, really, everyone is against Klaus. It's really reiterating what Marcel thought, and really, it's just made things a lot worse with what Rebekah just said. I feel like Klaus kind of had a chance before, and now he has no chance whatsoever, and you definitely do see that here. So, then we get this really sad scene with Elijah and Hayley. We see that Elijah's making sure that Hayley's okay and everything, and Elijah actually tells Hayley to leave and be happy without him, and honestly, yeah, I mean, that's what anyone would have wanted. I like that Hayley wanted to go with Klaus. I forgot to say that. You know, Rebekah wanted to go as well, but Hayley wanted to go with Klaus because of that new dynamic that they had, and Klaus told her to stay back. And that's the thing. He wants her to be able to raise Hope because that's what Hayley wanted. Hayley wanted to be a mother. Hayley wanted to be able to raise Hope. She never could have that life, and finally she'll get to have that life with Hope, and she'll get to be a mother, and she gets to be all alone with her. It's really sad, but it makes it seem like that really is the direction that Hayley is headed, is that she's going to get to be that mother to Hope that she's always wanted to be. She's going to be able to devote all of her life to Hope. And like I said before, I don't really think that Hayley wants that kind of life. She's kind of just trapped herself in that, and that's just where she is now. But basically, I love the way that was done. I think there was some really good stuff there, and definitely really great the way all that was done, and definitely really hard to watch again. So Klaus finally realizes the attention of the crowd, and he immediately brings up Davina in a very unflattering light, and then he turns on everyone else there, and he tells them that they should all be grateful that he turned them immortal, and that even if they kill him, they all still have to live with their pain and remember him forever. And let me just say that I do think that what Rebekah said about the always and forever thing, that part is not true. But it is pretty crazy that they do still think about always and forever, and that's just something, that's a truth they made as children, and it's still something that they say all the time. I mean, Klaus always says always and forever, always and forever. But you know, Klaus is not wrong here, that we already can see, you know, if someone kills Klaus or someone does something to Klaus, they feel genuinely bad about it. Why? Because they know that Klaus was in the right, and that Klaus did things for reasons. I've said it before. Klaus does, you know, unreasonable things and things that don't seem justified, but really he does that to protect his family, because he will always protect his family over himself, and we really do see that here. And it seems like the only logical choice is not to dagger him, but to make him suffer. And yet that still gets him out of the trial alive. Marcel has the perfect punishment, though, because he's still alive. It's not working at all. And I love that at this point, it doesn't seem like anything can kill Klaus. That Klaus is kind of invincible here. But you also see that Klaus is very weak as well. He just wanted to get these final words out, so that way they could see that he wasn't a terrible person, because I think Klaus knows deep down he's not a terrible guy. He knows he has some good in him. Like I've said, Klaus has really gone through a lot of development this season. I think last season as well, but especially this season, Klaus has really discovered a lot of things about himself. He's discovered that he does things that are really don't seem good, and really he could have done better, but he does things quickly. He doesn't necessarily think about things in the way that he should, and because of him doing that, that's why things have turned out the way it does for him. And he also knows that he's not a perfect person, but he does know that he's not a bad guy, and that he does have some good in him, and I really like seeing that, because that's a major quality of Klaus. I mean, there really are some very good things about Klaus, and I think that this season has definitely really showed that. So Marcel is the perfect punishment, though. He stabs a dagger digged in poison that will make Klaus feel agonizing pain. He plunges it into his chest, and that scene was so crazy when Marcel is saying, this is for Gigi, this is for pretty much everyone that has died. If you remember everyone that Klaus has killed, he basically names off everyone that Klaus has killed, including his wife, that if you remember, Marcel had to kill in, like, 1694, if you remember. You know, Rebekah as well, that whole situation, and he stabs it into his chest and immediately is regretting it. It's really sad, but honestly, you can tell immediately he's regretting this. And I'm like, did they just kill Klaus? Like, I was really freaking out. I'm like, there is no way they actually killed Klaus. And I knew that definitely Klaus wasn't alive. Turns out that this was actually part of a whole other plan, which does seem far-fetched, but really does make sense. Because one, we knew Klaus can't die. The show would be over. The show's called The Originals. We need Klaus to live. Two, we know Klaus leaves town, and this shows us both of those things. We see Freya starts a spell in order to cleanse all of their poison, because at this point they've really run out of options, and this is really the last thing they can do in order to cleanse all their options. It knocks them out, and Hayley is the only one left staying. A really fantastic scene showing that Hayley is a member of the Mikaelson family, but she does get to live her own life, and they really don't. She's the only one that's not trapped right now. She's the only one that's not suffering, and that's something I really like seeing, is that Hayley doesn't have to suffer. Hayley can leave, and Hayley can go out on her own. You don't know if she really wants to, but she can, and Klaus looks like he's pretty close to death, and Vincent confronts Marcel, and what he says to Marcel I think is very interesting. He talks about the crime scene that Kinney showed him, and everything that's going on there, and he says, the king is dead, long live the king, and he really asks Marcel, you know, what did you get out of this? Why did you do this? And he accused Marcel of being no better than Klaus, and that he's taking back this church in order to make it a sanctuary for people like Marcel and Klaus, and he says, I don't care who wants it, anyone that's suffering, they can come, and you can really see Vincent going in this direction of really just staying neutral, which I really think is what Vincent's done all season. So, you know, Vincent is still going to stay neutral. He really doesn't have a side. He hasn't picked a side yet, and I don't think he's really going to pick a side, because I don't really think he wants to pick a side, which is something that he's eventually inevitably going to have to do, but he just doesn't want to do that at this point. So really interesting the way that was done, but I do like that Vincent said Marcel is wrong, and Marcel I think knows deep down that he was wrong, because we see as he's basically bricking up Klaus, like he doesn't even, it's not even what you think, you know, it's not even Klaus like just being stabbed. He's literally daggering him. He's literally being bricked up, and basically he's taking back the church in order to make a sanctuary for people like Marcel and Klaus, and we see that Klaus is being bricked up. That's probably how he's going to you know, he's going to eventually come back. We know that Caroline obviously comes to meet him, so I'm thinking they are going to take that 3-year time jump next year. But Hayley loads a confined vampires into a moving van, takes them all away, and she also takes Hope with her. And then the biggest question, though, is what happened to Cole, Elijah, Freya, and Rebekah? And this is something that I love. Now, I know a lot of people thought this was going to happen, but they kind of had to do this. One, I think it's a good idea because of the fact that they're not coming back till January, so we really have this new direction that we haven't had before, and it kind of not resets the show, but just changes things a little bit, which I really do like. Two, it definitely shows that a time jump is definitely going to happen. We see Cole, Elijah, Freya, and Rebekah. Yes, Rebekah is staying on, which I am very happy about. They're in a trance that only is allowed because of Klaus's suffering. Because of Klaus' suffering, he saved them because of him sacrificing himself. Now, we don't know if Klaus is dead. He appears to be in a very deep sleep and everything, and what's going on there. You know, we don't really know what the state of Klaus is. You know, for me, it seems like he's just in a deep sleep, because we know that Klaus obviously isn't dead. I think he is going to come back at some point, but right now, he's in a deep sleep, and the only reason that they are in this kind of like, mind palace right now is because of the fact that, which apparently is something that Dahlia created. Like Freya said that Dahlia always had this, but she was never able to use it, and that Klaus was the one that saved them. I don't really understand it, but basically we'll have to see what happens with that. And I love the way this episode ends, because it really just showed, like I said, I think that Hope is going to play a much bigger role next season. We see Klaus has this note to Hope and everything, and it talks about how he doesn't know when he's going to see her, but whenever she gets this note and whenever she reads it, he wants her to be strong, he wants her to be, you know, and that the reason she's named Hope is that she provides hope for the family. And really, in many ways, yeah, Hope and Hayley are the ones that do provide that hope. I mean, the Mikaelsons have caused so much terror, and nothing has gone right for them this season at all. I mean, we've seen throughout this entire season the amount of stuff they've gone through, the amount of deaths they caused, and the amount of hardships they've all had to suffer. Hope is really the one that's going to be able to, fix all this, and Hope, they're hoping, is going to give them that hope, and that hope is going to rise up, and that hope is eventually, I think, going to become very powerful. I mean, we're talking about a hybrid here. Hope is going to be a hybrid, and I definitely think when we get back to that time jump, Hope is going to be a lot older. I think she's going to be probably, she'll be like 5 or by then, I think. Definitely that's going to happen. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting as well. But overall, guys, that's how this finale ends. And overall, I thought this was a really, really satisfying finale. I mean, probably the best finale they've ever done. I could see someone say this felt like a series finale because in many ways, it did feel like a series finale. It's kind of the end of the beginning of the show. They've killed off so many original characters. We've now moved on to the new portion of the show, which is them finding hope, them finding a way out of this. And obviously, Freya needs to find a cure. Now, how she's going to find that cure, I don't really know. But like Freya said, it's going to take years. So I'm thinking that definitely a time jump is in order, which makes sense because obviously they want to do more crossovers, and the only way the originals can do that is to catch up to the Vampire Diaries. The Vampire Diaries obviously did a 3-year time jump, so the originals has to do a 3-year time jump, and I definitely think it's going to happen. Now let's get to the thing that really pisses me off. The fact that we have to wait till January is bullshit. I don't know why we have to wait till January. I think it's really dumb. This by far is the CW's strongest show, even though I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Jane the Virgin, and The Flash and things like that. This is their strongest show. It's the show I look forward to the most. This episode felt epic. It did not disappoint at all. It felt epic. You got that epic feel. It's exactly what the Vampire Diaries should be, and the fact that that got a full season and this didn't really pisses me off, and I don't really understand why the CW did that. Maybe it'll benefit them. I'm not really sure. I don't think it's going to in any way, shape, or form, but, I mean, I don't think it's going to be messy next season, because Michael Nardecki definitely knows what he's doing, but overall, guys, this season in general was incredible. I think this is the strongest season of the originals by far the most emotionally satisfying season. I think all the deaths we got this season were very well earned, between Cammy's death, Davina's death, there was a lot of sadness and tragedy this season, and I really do think that this is going to be next season is going to be how can we rise up and how can we really, get back all of that hope and that, bravery and that perseverance that we once had, because they've really lost a lot of that. I mean, even though they're now in this, they're now in this state where they're sleeping basically and in stasis pretty much, they are obviously kind of hopeless, and Freya still has to find a cure. Hayley, what is going to happen with Hayley? Obviously, Hayley's left town, so we don't really know if she's going to come back. What's going on with Klaus? Because I don't really know. Is Klaus dead? Is he just in a dream? I don't think Klaus is actually dead. I mean, he's clearly been sacrificed, and Marcel really does regret that. But again, it does show that Marcel's not the villain. Marcel just couldn't let this one thing go, and because of that, it caused him all this stuff. It seems like Vincent's going to turn against him, so that's not going to be good. We'll have to see how that all turns out, because Vincent, obviously, he's going to remain very neutral. I also see Kinney playing a big role next season as well. I don't know how, but it seems like Kinney and Vincent, that's going to be a big part of Vincent's arc next season, that Kinney and Vincent are going to start investigating things. They're basically going to try to take back the church. They're going to try to keep things so humans can still have a chance in New Orleans, that New Orleans isn't this corrupted town anymore, because let's face it, New Orleans is a very corrupted town. The fact that there are Strix everywhere, that definitely is going to be a big thing next season. I feel if we do this time jump especially, things might be very different for Vincent. I feel like Marcel's going to be very downgraded. Vincent will be a lot more powerful, and Kinney as well, I feel, will be very powerful, definitely. I think that definitely is where we're headed, for next season, because like I said, definitely think a time jump is happening. I don't know. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if the time jump is going to be in the beginning of the season or if they're going to do what the Vampire Diaries did and do it towards the end. If they only have 13 episodes, though, I would just do it in the beginning of the season. I think it would make sense to do that. Just start 3 years later. I'm down, honestly. I mean, anytime they want to do it, I'm down, but I think either way, it's going to be really cool to see how that all turns out. As far as the rest of the Mikaelsons going, we'll just have to see what happens there. I mean, we know they obviously didn't die. Kinney is going to turn into something. Kinney was bit. He's going to turn into something. I don't know what he's going to turn into, but he was definitely bit, and something is going to happen, and I don't know if he's going to turn into something. I feel like he has turned into something, though, because obviously he was bitten, so we'll have to see how that all turns out, what's happening with that. Hayley, I feel like Hope is going to be a lot more powerful when we get back. I think, like I said, Hope will be a lot older, like she'll be like 5 or 6, so I feel like Hayley might train her a little bit. We'll have to see what goes on with that. Or is Hayley going to try to get away from all this? I feel like that's really what they wanted to do. They wanted to just get away from all this and let her and Hope be able to live their own life and not have to deal with them anymore, which is sad to see because she does want to be Marcel and she does want to be with Klaus because they really have become her family. And it's a really great transition for Hayley, especially from the beginning of the season. That rage she had for Klaus and that rage she had against Marcel. She wanted nothing to do with the Mikaelsons, and now they mean so much to her. She would like to do anything else but run away, but she's doing it because that's what they want her to do, and she feels that's really the only way out of this, is to just get out of there. And obviously she wants the best thing for her daughter, and you definitely do see that. But overall, guys, this season was just incredible. You guys know how much I loved it. I mean, almost every review this year was 30 minutes. I mean, you guys know how much I love this season, how much I talked about this season. Every episode delivered for me. Every episode was incredible. I thought we had an incredible villain in Lucian. He was amazing this season. And of course, he really was the linchpin that set up all the chaos this season. Yes, I know a lot of people said, oh, Lucian died too early, but Lucian's reign of terror did not die. I mean, that really was the direct result of what happened with Marcel. Because of Lucian having that serum, that's what made Marcel turn the way he is, and I think that really did make sense why that all turned out. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of the season. Love to hear your thoughts on it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which I think will be for the new Netflix series, Lady Dynamite, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.